Dear students, welcome to the next session of Managerial Effectiveness and Leadership. And in today's session, we are going to discuss on this topic called as emotional intelligence. Now, most of us are aware of this word called as intelligence, and we relate it to something which we abbreviately we speak of is IQ, is intelligent quotient. But today we are going to look at something called as EQ, which is turning the world across to this word called as EQ, that is emotional quotient, or it can be broadly said that it is also known as emotional intelligence. Where did this word or where did this thing come out? This thing came from this book by name Working with Emotional Intelligence, written by Daniel Goleman in 1998, suggests that emotional intelligence accounts for 67% of the abilities needed to be successful leader and is twice as important as technical proficiency or IQ. So, what this book talks about in general is though intelligent quotient is needed, it is the basic thing on which most of us would exist. Simultaneously, we would also need technical proficiency, where as and when the world is moving around, we have to upgrade ourselves technologically. And while we are upgrading ourselves to the next thing in the work wise or maybe our lifestyle wise, simultaneously we also have to consider the emotions. Now why emotions? Because we work in a society, we work in a workplace where there are multiple people along with us, and simultaneously we have to know ourselves. And when we say that we know ourselves, we would not know about our emotions, and we would not know about how if I probably would want to give an example here is, if I would probably shout at a particular student, I would not get to know what goes through the student's emotions when I shout at him. So here, this emotional intelligence, working with emotional intelligence, the book speaks of is on a similar grounds where you have to understand first your emotions, and then you have to understand the others' emotions also. And when you understand both, that is your emotions as well as the others' emotions, you lead to be successful in your life as a leader. So keeping this as a background, let's look into what is this topic has got for us. What is emotional intelligence? As I said some time back, emotional intelligence is the ability to identify and manage your emotions as well as other people's emotions. Now, first is you should be aware of what is your emotions. And if you know about your emotions, you can manage your emotions. If you do not know at the first place what is my emotion, whether I get angry, whether I don't get angry, what is it when it comes to my emotions, if I don't, I'm not aware of it, then obviously I cannot manage it. And once I manage my own emotions, then obviously the next step is I would get to know other people's emotions also very easily. So keeping this as a background, let's move ahead. If you are emotional intelligence, you have the ability to identify what you are feeling. So as and when you are feeling sad, as and when you're feeling going down on the emotions, as and when you are feeling happy, these all emotions you will be aware of when you are emotionally intelligent. The second thing is know how to interpret your emotions, and third is understand how your emotions can impact others. Now if you look into, I was in a place where we colleagues were speaking, and we were just having a chit chat, and we were talking about each individual's life, and we were trying to give examples with respect to how emotions play, and I could feel the other person's emotions very easily, and I could not only feel but I could interpret their emotions simultaneously. So when you are emotionally aware, what happens is it gets connected to the other person also, that is the individual who is around you, as a peer, as a colleague, as a person who is reporting to you, or maybe even your superior. Their emotions also can be interpreted very easily when you are aware of your own emotions. Next is understand how your emotions can impact others. Now obviously this third point is very important, because I am aware of my emotions, I know how to manage my emotions. Now, these emotions, if I'm happy, this happiness will definitely have some impact on the others. If I'm sad, obviously the sadness would have some impact on others. Now you will also try and understand these things when you are self-aware of your emotions. The fourth one is regulate your emotions. And once you know how to manage your emotions, you will be able to have a regulation where I would not probably move away. See, life is about it is about being happy and as well as being sad. But how much of I if I'm being happy, how much of I would be happy, and if I'm on on a day when it is not my day, I would not be sad, and how much will I not be sad. So the emotions, if you can control your emotions, then obviously you can regulate your emotions. And lastly is manage other people's emotions also. And it is difficult, as I said, it is not easy. First is, it is not easy for yourself to be aware of your emotions, and second is, once you are aware and you manage your emotions, it is difficult also to manage others emotions. So keeping this as a base, let's move on to the next slide. Some people naturally inherit high EQ, but it is a skill that you can practice and develop. Now, obviously, if I would have been in a classroom, I would have asked you this question: Is can emotional intelligence be inherited? Now, the answer to is the answer to this is obviously yes, because emotional intelligence can be inherited. Sometimes you don't tend to be in a position to know about your emotions, but emotions can be learned. You can also move away from being a low EQ to a high EQ if you know your emotions. So you just have to keep a track. Anyways, there are about 5 points which we are going to speak in today's session, and those 5 points will definitely will help you to manage your emotions. So as I said sometime back, yes, emotions can be inherited, and how do I inherit these emotions? Is I need to practice and develop it. How do I practice it? Is obviously understand the emotions, being self-aware. So the next thing is, by practicing emotional intelligence behavior, your brain will adapt to make these behavior automatic and replace less helpful behaviors. Now, what is this trying? What is this sentence trying to talk about? Is obviously is very simple. Once you change yourself, and these changes over a period of time, as we have studied in NLP, in neuro linguistic programming, is very simple. Is it change small changes will bring in a bigger change, and these changes will get into your behavior aspect. And once it is getting into the behavioral aspect, as obviously whatever was there earlier behavior will be replaced, and you will move towards developing yourself and practicing with a high emotional quotient. So keeping these as a base, we have 5 things in terms of emotional intelligence, and the 5 things are the 5 features of emotional intelligence as per the book are self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, motivation, and social skill. I'll repeat it: self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, motivation, and social skill. Now, what are these 5? Obviously, the first thing is self-explanatory, self-awareness. Now, what do I mean by self-awareness? When I mean self-awareness, is obviously I have to be aware of my emotions, and if I'm aware of my emotions, I am being able to regulate it. So, I how do I do that? I probably in the next slide we are going to speak about it. But the basic is self-awareness is the important aspect for your emotional intelligence, and you can develop your emotional intelligence very easily. Self-regulation is obviously when you are aware of your emotions, or you can regulate your emotions. Being too very happy, being too very sad can be managed through self-regulation. Empathy is something to do with how others emotions can be felt, and you would feel their emotions, you would put yourself into their shoes, and you would understand their problems, and this would help you as a leader, as a manager, when you move into the business organizations. Because what would happen is obviously uh, it 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 would put you into a place where you understand the other person's, and the other person also, because you understand his problems, the other person will also work for you as an individual, and he would be attached to you. uh, so empathy becomes very very important. Next, the fourth point is obviously motivation, and you have to keep yourself motivated. What is motivation and how is it related to the emotional intelligence? Anyways, in the slides we are going to look at. And the last one is social skill. The social skill is obviously when all the 4 things, the first 4 things work, is you would do good as a social animal, and you would do good with all the people around you, be it in your organization, be it in your family, be it in your relatives, be with your friends. So when you are into a social place, you would light up the things for others, and because you can manage the emotions, you can do well in any of the aspects of the society. So let's look into each of them in a detail, and let's look at the first one, that is self-awareness. So what is self-awareness? Self-awareness is the ability to accurately recognize your emotions, strengths, limitations, actions, and understand how these affect others around you. Now, as I said sometime back, is self-awareness is with respect to how do I understand myself. Now, the first is how much I know about myself. Now, most of you possibly are in the age group of say 21, 22, and how much of you are aware of yourself? Probably not even your parents are aware of you of that much, because you yourself have seen yourself for the last 21, 22 years. So, what does this mean? Is you should be aware of what emotions you go through. Now, supposedly, when would I be happy? Just try and ask yourself a question, that when was the last time I was happy? When was the last time I was sad? When was the last time I felt somewhere that I'm guilty? When was the last time I felt that I was arrogant? When was the last time when I was having a kiddish kind of a nature? So these are all self-awareness, and this probably would get to know about your emotions. And obviously it has a replication on the actions of, as I said sometime back, this would impact others also something. The benefits of knowing self-awareness is obviously it increases the likelihood of you handling and using constructive feedback effectively. Supposedly someone gives you a feedback, hey look, I feel somewhere you are feeling uh, maybe not that great, or maybe you're feeling down for some reason, can I know? Now, how do you get to know this? Is obviously you are in a position, the other person is able to see your emotions, and he's able to feel the emotions, and that is where he's coming and asking you a question, where he's saying that, hey look, you feel down. So the reason here is, when you are self-aware, you will take the feedback in a very constructive way. Trust me, a lot of people go say lies that no, nothing has gone wrong with me today, I'm all right. But still, that face, that the body language would probably convey a simple communication with respect to the emotions. Next is, by knowing your strengths and weaknesses, you can improve your organization performance. For example, you may hire individuals who perform well in the areas you struggle with. Supposedly, I struggle with to be very honest, I'm not that great at Excel. Now, if I know myself that I am not very good at Excel, in that case, what is the best thing for me is I take the help of others, and I would know my weakness, and simultaneously I work on my weakness to come out of that particular weakness. Next, in terms of self-awareness, improve self-awareness by, how do I improve the self-awareness is obviously the next question. Keep a diary. Now, what does a diary do? Now, a diary or a notepad would help you. Now, this is something which you have to do it on an everyday basis. It's a very simple thing. Every day, maybe just before going to the sleep, or just before maybe half an hour after your dinner, you have to sit with yourself, and what is that you have to do is understand what has happened in the entire day, and try and trigger the information which is with respect to the entire day. I mean to say, what is that has gone through? When was I angry? Or when was my behavior in a different way? Was I the same when I behaved something similar? Supposedly, I was angry for a particular reason, and that angerness today was reflected on me, on my work, or my performance, or maybe when I was talking to somebody else, was that reflected? So these are certain things you have to make a note of it. And when you make a note of this, possibly this information will help you to understand your emotions and reactions, and work towards self-regulation. Now, the next part is obviously self-regulation. I'll not touch upon it at this point of time, but you should know a pattern in which you would get angry, or your behavior is based on you keeping a note of your emotions. So the more important thing, or the most important thing at this point of time is keep a diary and make a note of whatever is happening across the day. and this has to be practiced on an everyday basis across 365 days and many years. And this habit will definitely help you as an individual to succeed in your life. Second is receiving feedback from the staff. Now, not many people are ready to take feedback. Now, trust me, a lot of people would avoid this taking feedback, and we always feel so that koi kuch bol diya to, we don't take it very in a fashion which probably it is positive for us. But the most important thing is taking feedback, and when we take the feedback, is how others look at us is something which is known. Possibly, we might get to know about ourselves through the Johari window. Now, Johari window is something which is practiced, and which has been um, which is one of the theories which says that many of us are blind spotted with a lot of things, and we don't know about ourselves. Possibly others know something about ourselves. So these are certain things. When you take the feedback, you obviously would close that blind spot, and you would be successful in getting the perception of other people about you. We move on to the next, that is self-regulation. Now, what is self-regulation? Self-regulation allows you to wisely manage your emotions and impulses, and you show or restrain certain emotions depending on what is necessary and beneficial for the situation. For example, rather than shouting at your employees you are stressed, you may decide which task can be delegated. Now, let me put it across this way. I know my emotions, and what I do is I have the ability of shouting at people. In that case, what do I do is I regulate that. I slowly and steadily move away from shouting at people, and I delegate them work. Maybe I write it and put it across onto the a paper saying that you are supposed to do this, and once the task has been delegated, they tend to do their work. The subordinates or your peer or your colleagues would obviously do their work in a very professional manner. So the best thing is, once you know that you are in a position where you are shouting at your own subordinate, it is good that you move away from that particular habit and start delegating the task, or start delegating the work to them. What are the benefits? Self-regulation helps earn the respect and trust of employees. Obviously, the first point is self-explanatory, where when you understand, when you are shouting at someone and you stop shouting at a particular person, obviously the first thing which comes into picture is the other person starts respecting you, and the trust of the employee keeps on increasing on you, as because he knows that there is something which is changing, and you are helping him, and he would definitely would respect you more importantly. Second one is useful when adapting change. Trust me, change is inevitable, and all of us have to change. I've seen one of the superiors when I was in industry. What is to happen is this person used to be a nice person when it comes to work, but he had uh, a problem. The problem was he used to shout at people, and he used to shout on top of his voice. Now, obviously, when someone is been shouted on the top of the voice, he would not take it positively. The subordinate who has been shouted, and because things are not going as the way it was planned. Possibly, the person would have probably sat with him, and the subordinate would have been explained what has happened and what should have been done and all those things. But when this happens, shouting on the top of the voice, the subordinate obviously will not take it positive, and he or she would start leaving the organization, think of leaving the organization. So this happened during my industry experience, and what I could see is obviously when we spoke to this superior, we told him that, hey boss, I believe that the attrition is high because you are doing this, and he said I will start regulating that in that case. And when he started doing self-regulation, obviously the first thing which I could see is his team started performing better than any other team, because the team members could understand the superior very well, and was this self regulation helped him in adapting to the change. The third one is allows you to react rationally. Now, when I mean this rationally is you know what is your reaction to that particular thing or that particular situation. When you react with a particular logic, the first thing is obviously the employee starts understanding what is that you are trying to convey the message. So the best thing is self-regulation helps. So to have the self-regulation, you obviously would need the self-awareness of emotions. How do I improve my self-regulation? Self-regulation can be improved by taking responsibility if you have made mistakes. If I have committed some mistake, I would probably say, "Hey, look, it is me who has done the fault," and I would probably convey it in saying to my team that, "Hey, look, it is me," rather than blaming the others. Now, what happens when the fault is someone else's and you take the blame, or you have made the fault and you take the blame? Is obviously somewhere the other people are looking at you, and the respect for you is something somewhere growing. So very important is if you have done any mistakes, please take the responsibilities. You are accountable for good as well as for the bad when things happen. Responding to situations calmly, as your communication is more effective when you are in this state, and this feeling will spread to others. Breathing techniques such as controlled breathing can be useful practice. What is the second paragraph talks of is responding to situations calmly. When you are communicating, when especially you are speaking to your peers, or when you are speaking to your colleagues or your subordinate, what's important is you have to have a state of mind in which you know what is that you are speaking. When we are angry, when we are sad, when we are feeling bad about a particular thing, what happens is our emotions are not in our control, and when the emotions are not in our control, our communication also goes wayward, and a lot of times we tend to say things which are not necessary at all. So the best thing is self-awareness, and the second one is self-regulation. How do I do it? Is obviously breathing exercises. If you could probably follow pranayama, and this pranayama would definitely help you to do well in your, because the state of mind has to be relaxed. The next is empathy, and what do I mean by empathy here is um, to be empathetic means you are able to identify and understand others' emotions. That is, imagining yourself in someone else's position. Now, when you say empathy is, I understand your situation, I understand your problem. Not all leaders, not all managers are good with this empathy. The third part of emotional intelligence, which Daniel Goleman in his book speaks, is empathy. Now, it is, trust me, it is one of the most difficult parts, because being aware of your emotions and self-regulating your emotions is very very easy, and it is very very possibly it can be developed over a period of time. But how do I put myself in other person's shoes and imagine a situation in which things are going around is one of the toughest thing. So empathy is something which has to be developed, and this can be developed when you start understanding other person's emotions also. What could be the benefits? Obviously, provides you with understanding of how an individual feels and why they behave in a certain way. As a result, your compassion and your ability to help someone increases because you respond genuinely to concerns. Now, the first point which speaks is you are understanding other person's feelings. Now, it is one of the difficult part, as I said some time back. It's not easy because not all the people would want to open up, and they would want to tell you that what is actually going on internally with them. And when you are able to get this across, it is one of the easiest things. So if you get to know about individual, how individual feels and why are they behaving in a certain way, it is the best thing which can happen. And you can definitely be in a position to understand their emotions. Especially helpful when delivering constructive feedback. Trust me, you will have to give feedbacks when you are a manager, when you are a superior, and you are possibly you have 5 10 people who are reporting to you. You would have to give a feedback, and this feedback has to be given very constructively. And the way you look at this is it helps the employee to move to the next level. Possibly, if he has some weaknesses, it would probably help him to know his weaknesses, and he can work on his weaknesses and come back very strongly the next time you are sitting with him for the same thing. Being empathetic shows your team that you care. Obviously, it is self-explanatory that if you are empathetic to your team members, obviously it shows your care, your genuine concern towards the team members. The next is employees will respect you more, and subsequently job performance will also improve. Now, somewhere in his book, Daniel Goldman speaks of just that. As the empathy, as I start trusting you more as an individual, I trust you as a manager, I trust you as a superior. In that case, the unity increases, and because of it the job satisfaction also increases. That is where he somewhere says. Further continue, how do I develop empathy is imagine yourself in someone else's position. As I said sometime back, it is very difficult, but you will have to learn, because that is where you could probably get the best out of it, your emotions, others emotions, sorry. Even if you have not experienced a similar situation, remember a situation where you have felt the same emotion your employee is experiencing. Someone is feeling sad for something which has happened in their family or maybe with him. What is that you do is, you try to probably put yourself in other person's shoes. Is you imagine that what if something happens to me in a similar way, or what if something has happened in my past in my family similar way. So how is that I have come across, how is that I have tackled it. So you can probably share those experiences to your subordinate. Practice listening to your employees without interpreting them. Important aspect. Listening is something which you have to develop as a skill. Trust me, a lot of people face difficulties because they would want to ask questions in between. Um, Continuous listening, you are just putting yourself in a, when I was into the industry, what I have seen is, my interviews were like, i used to I used to ask a question, and I used to just look at the person who is the on the other side. He goes on and on, and sometimes he tells you a lot of fact. Even when I was interacting with the employees in my organization, I used to just put across one question, and then um, wait, wait and listen to his answer. And after one point, after second point, after third point, there are a lot of times when the other person will give up, and he will come up with the truth, and he will. So this uninterrupted listening is something which is very difficult. But if you practice it, trust me, it is something very great tool for you uh, as a manager. Observe your employees and try to gauge how they are feeling. So obviously, observation is something which you have to keep an eye on each of the employee. Never ignore your employees' emotions. For example, if an employee looks upset, don't disregard this, address it. So if your employee is obviously not in a position on that particular day, is upset with something, try to speak to him, try to talk to him. Because as I said sometime back, emotions would be shown on either on the face or either in the body language, and this has to be caught, and has to be inquired. And again, we go back to the second point, that is practice listening. You put a question and you just listen, and definitely the employee will give out a lot of things. And during this phase, I've seen that a lot of employees, a lot of people who speak, they speak genuine. The important thing is they probably would shed tears, and you make them console, and you keep them going on. And when they put their tears, or when they shed their tears from their eyes, what I've generally seen is a lot of emotions come out, and they tend to tell you the truth and the fact. So this can be probably utilized to them to console, and you probably can help them to come out of their emotions very easily. Try to understand first, rather than from a judgment. For example, you may initially feel annoyed at an employee who seems cold and disinterested. However, after discovering they suffer from social anxiety, you may feel more sympathetic. So first is, make sure that don't go for judgments. You understand from their first-hand information that what is that is happening with your subordinates. Next is to communicate your empathy. Keep your body language open and regulate your voice to show your sincerity. Now, obviously, it is you should be open to listen to people, and listen to the employee, listen to your subordinate. And when you're open, obviously, only then they would be in a position to come to you, and they would be in a position to share a lot of things with respect to their emotions. We move on to the next part of emotional intelligence, that is motivation. What is motivation? Being self-motivated consists of enjoying what you do, working towards achieving your goals, and not being motivated by money or status. Obviously, self-motivation or motivation is very difficult, because not every day we tend to get motivation. Somewhere we also would lose the motivations. But what Daniel Goleman in his book says, that you have to be self-motivated, and you should know what is that you are enjoying, what is that working towards achieving your goals. So as in one of the classes I was talking about, how do we actually put goals right in front of us, is we should have the objectives clear. For objectives, we should have a vision and mission very clear. So you should have goals, and these goals can be short term or long term, and you have to achieve this, and over a period of time. Simultaneously, you should not be motivated by money or status. I've seen a lot of students after joining the corporate, maybe after 6 months to 1 year, they get very easily attracted for that 2000 rupees hike or 1000 rupees hike, which they feel so that is more important. No, student. What I see is you don't have to really look or probably get motivated towards money. Money will definitely flow in. Money will definitely be part of your life after maybe 5 years, 10 years. But you have to slog. You have to put in your that first 4 5 years in such a way that you get motivated and you work towards your goal. What are the benefits of being self motivated? Is reduces your likelihood of procrastination. What is this? Likelihood of postponing is something which probably we would look at as a student. Uh, we would probably delay a lot of things. These are certain things which would probably reduce over a period of time when we are self motivated. Increases self confidence, keeps you motivated when if you face setbacks, and makes you focused on achieving your goals. Spreads to them, spreads to the team. Obviously, when you are motivated, when you are self motivated, obviously things move on to your team, and it. Now, how to increase your motivation? Remember, you are doing your job. You may maybe think about what you want it initially. Now, what is that I wanted initially? Am I doing it? Am I working on it? And am I going towards my goal? So you should be very sure of what is your goal and what is your objective in your life, and how best thing can be done. And supposedly, I want to be a very good teacher at this point of time. So in that case, my first thing, my goal is to be a very good teacher. So to be a very good teacher, what is that I'm supposed to do? Is make sure that when I'm going to the class or when I'm taking a class, I'm well prepared. I'm giving multiple examples to the student so that the student is able to understand the concept in a very easy and simple manner. So that will help the others. This for this you need to be self motivated. Set new goals if you lack them. Obviously, you would have to define your goals. If you don't, you will have to have your goals planned. Remain optimistic, because to be motivated, you must be positive even when there is a setback or a challenge. Identify one positive factor about it. Trust me, there is a nice quote which is in Hindi. Probably I would take it in. I would talk about it in Hindi itself. The quote goes like this: "जो होता है अच्छे के लिए होता है." Now, whatever happens, happens for the good. Now, possibly there might be the day which is not gone good. There might be a lot of challenges. There are a lot of times when you would get frustrated. uh, Trust me, you would have to see from this angle that whatever happens, happens for the good. And when it happens for the good, obviously, even these things, see, as they say it in Hindi, there is हर चढ़ाव के बाद उतार होता है, and हर उतार के बाद there is चढ़ाव होता है. So what does this mean is every downhill probably will have something good for you. So every failure will have something to succeed about. And I've seen a lot of people who have failed miserably, and they've come back in their life, and they have moved up to that extent where nobody would have imagined they would move on to that particular position. So what it says is, you need, though there are challenges, though there are setback, you need to identify one positive factor and keep going at as possible as possible. To increase your employees' motivation, explain why they are valuable using example, as this will provide them a sense of purpose. Now, obviously, you have to be self-motivated. Obviously, you also have to make sure that others have also be motivated. So if others are motivated, others have to be motivated is, you need to tell them that how valuable are they, and how it helps, how their work helps the organization to grow. So these are certain things which you tend to do when you want to motivate yourself. The next part is social skill, and this is the last part of the emotional intelligence. Now, the social skills is, effective social skills consist of managing relationships in a way that benefits the organization. Obviously, if I'm a social animal, and all of us are a social animal, where you'd want to interact. We are in a society where it makes us to be part of that certain, where we have to interact with many people, be it our classmates, be it our teachers, be it on a bus stop, be it tomorrow in your business organization, in your workplace. You would have to interact, and this is very important skill. What are the benefits? Effective social skills help you to build rapport with your employees and earn their respect and loyalty. Obviously, when you are very good, when you are very good in terms of social skills, there are a lot of times the employees would they would have a lot of respect and loyalty towards you. Employees will trust you, which is especially valuable if unwelcome decisions have been made, such as rise in performance targets and something like that. So, if you have a very good social skill, even if there might be some challenges or new set of goals which you are planning for employees, people will take it positive. When you interact with your employees, you can identify the best way to meet their individual needs and identify how their abilities can be used to achieve the organization's aims. So obviously, each individual, each department is working towards the organization goals, and what you have to do is make sure that the individual needs have to be identified, and they have been told about how to achieve that particular thing in order, uh, how their abilities, or how their individual capability can help the organization to grow well. Staff will feel comfortable presenting ideas to you and discussing concerns. Obviously, when you are good at social skills, it would help you to, it will help you to be comfortable. People will be comfortable to you, and they would be in a position to speak to you in a very open manner and a socialized manner. So this helps, obviously. How do I improve my social skills? Developing your communication skills is very important. Problems can arise if there is bad communication, such as misunderstanding, upsetting employees. Listening to feedback to work out what to target. For example, the manner in which you speak may need work, or perhaps your body language. Sometimes I've seen uh, some people who do their work in a very nice and a very nice, they would probably do their work which has been allocated, a task which has been given to them. But what happens with them as an individual, what I've seen here is, they are not in a position to speak to others, or possibly they somewhere communicate, or their body language is such that they are very aggressive, and because of which people would not take them very positively. So social skill will improve. So for this, what is the best thing is, what Daniel Goleman says is, develop your communication skills, obviously. And while you are developing the communication skill, you have to also work on your body language simultaneously. Learn how to provide praise and constructive feedback. You should be in a position to know how to praise people and give them feedback, and the feedback which should be constructive, which will help them to work onto their weaknesses. Cooperating and working together with your employees, because you are all working towards a shared goal. As I said some time back, obviously all of us are working towards the organization goals, be it individuals or be it departments. We all are working towards the organization goals. So what is the best thing is cooperating and working together. And these days, this is something is creeping up in the business organizations. Is at a workplace, you need to collaborate and you have to work together. So collaboration is very important, guys. Listening to employees and practicing empathy. Obviously, while we are speaking about empathy, we spoke about this. We have to be very good listeners, and we have to practice listening. Is something which we have spoken. Building relationship with your employees will assist you in understanding how to manage each individual. So if you are good with, I'm not saying you have to be good with only one, but you have to be good with all your employees who are associated with you or who are part of your team. So just make sure that you speak to them, and that makes them. You have to have a good relationship that makes them loyal to you, and that makes them loyal to the organization also. Last one, resolving conflicts by looking at the situation from all the viewpoints involved and try to come to a compromise that benefits everyone. Now, obviously, when there is conflicts, when conflicts is something bound to happen because we work in the organization, and possibly there are two heads which are fighting for something. So, what is that? The best thing is you have to come to a viewpoint which has to be a compromise nature, which is a win-win situation, which most of the today's world people would want to do is they would want to compromise. Simultaneously they would want to look at both the parties winning and no party losing the conflict. So with this we would end today's session on emotional intelligence, or we also call it as emotional quotient. And if you have any questions, or if you have any queries with respect to emotional quotient, please call me or message me on WhatsApp, and I would be happy to answer your queries. Thank you very much.